Well, everybody's on a hunt for happiness, but can a person's positivity become toxic?
If so, I apologize.
You couldn't even hold it together.
I tried. I'm sorry. John is joined by an expert via Zoom to find out.
Yeah, that's right, guys. Named Dr. Robert Cole is the author of a book called How to Build a Smile, joining us this morning to talk about the idea of toxic positivity. What is that exactly?
Well, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. So, believe it or not, you can have toxic positivity. So, despite a person's emotional pain or that difficult situation, it's the idea that they always have to have a positive mindset. Comments like it's going to work out or it's meant to be. Everything's going to be okay. This is a real problem for some people. These are kind of blind comments, and they tend to disconnect people from their emotional feelings. So, you need an outlet for your negative emotions, and it's important to feel those emotions. And sometimes when we prevent someone else from feeling those emotions, we can cause them to feel shameful. Maybe I shouldn't be having these emotions. And I think sometimes that can lead to serious problems because down the line, they've been suppressing these emotions and it can cause issues.
So is the idea that, look, if you have a negative emotion or something happens, it does need to be dealt with, and that you shouldn't be made to feel bad for feeling that way?
Exactly right. It is normal to feel bad sometimes. And I think there's a tendency sometimes to feel like you shouldn't have those feelings, and that you're shameful for feeling that way. And again, it's important to realize that this is reality. And sometimes when we constantly suppress those emotions, especially with ourselves, we start to not see reality. And then when we don't face reality, we can't solve real life problems. And I think that's where there's a little bit of danger.
What would be a good example of this that you've seen in real life?
Someone has a bad day at work and several things have gone wrong. And instead of listening to that person and acknowledging that these are real problems, you say, well, it could be worse. Or just look on the bright side.
Yeah.
And you never really listen to that person. We're all kind of guilty of this, right? Because, and maybe a lot of our family and friends, we try to be positive, especially the last year, because it's been a challenging year. So that was a perfect example. Someone's had a bad day, and instead of listening to that person, we tend to reflect and just tell them it's going to be okay, and we don't listen.
So it's really more a matter of being glib when somebody's going through something. So is this a case then we need to watch it not only within ourselves, but also us doing it to other people and not realizing it?
Exactly. And I'm actually very guilty of this sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think that it presents, and I've actually sort of recognized it now, and now I try to step back and say, let me listen to what the person's saying. Let me acknowledge that these are real problems, and that's the healthy way to do it. And I think that, yeah, exactly. It's on yourself, but also how we interact with other people. So
what do we do, though, then, if we notice ourselves kind of going down this path? How do we experience the negative emotion, but also don't let it, dominate our lives?
I think that's a good question. I think the main thing to do is if it's with someone else, I think it's to take a minute to listen. And then when it's with ourselves, we have to use that negativity to our advantage in a sense that acknowledge what it is, try to become better from that issue or that problem, learn from it, and then come up with an action plan to be better the next day or the next time you're dealing with that issue. And I think that's a good way to do it. There's several things you can do where you can continue to be happy, but also try to avoid toxic negativity. Simple things like, being grateful. Being grateful is healthy, but it also allows you to acknowledge that things may not be perfect, right? And that's a good way to acknowledge the bad, but also realize that you also are very lucky to have some of the things you may have in your life.
And I would say that's a point we're not saying you should go around being a sourpuss either, but if something genuinely negative happens, it's okay to feel those emotions. Your book called How to Build a Smile is available where?
You can get it on Amazon. You can also check out my website, robertmcolemd.com. And yeah, it's a great read. It's meant for people of all ages, and I think it can really help a lot of people. Doctor,
thank you so much. I think that's a really interesting topic. So, guys, if you feel mad about something, when something breaks here in the studio,
it's okay.
Don't feel bad about feeling bad.
Okay.
Don't feel bad about feeling bad.
John, your line of questioning was okay, but it could have been worse.
Wow.